Most students kind of race to build a resume and they're like, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. And look, that's great. But you have to look at admissions always from the perspective of the schools and the admissions officers. And they're looking at you and they're looking at this vast field of tens of thousands of applicants and they're saying, okay, how are you different from the other applicants that have done the exact same thing?
Hello, and welcome to the Admittedly podcast. My name is Thomas Caleel. I'm the former director of MBA admissions and financial aid for my alma mater, the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. In this podcast, I don't promise easy answers or quick fixes, but I will use my decades of experience to help you achieve your education goals. Now let's get started.
Hello, and welcome to the Admittedly podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Caleel, and today we're going to do myth busting on college admissions. We're going to talk about what most families overlook, and we're talking about the really important hidden half of college admissions. Now, I wish I had a cool walrus mustache. I wish I had a cool TV show where we could bust these myths, but I don't. So you're stuck with me on the podcast. I'm glad you're here. Let's have some fun. I really welcome your follow-up and feedback after this episode. Please go to our social media at AdmittedlyCO, at AdmittedlyCo on TikTok and Instagram. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you agree with, what you don't agree with. Ask your questions. I spend a lot of time every day in the comments, in the DMs, answering questions and interacting with students and families. I love it. It drives a lot of what I know understand to be on people's minds. It drives a lot of what we do here at Admittedly. So please engage with us. We absolutely love it. But what do I mean? When I talk about busting myths and engagement, this is really important. Most students kind of race to build a resume and they're like, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. And look, that's great. But you have to look at admissions always from the perspective of the schools and the admissions officers. And they're looking at you and they're looking at this vast field of tens of thousands of applicants and they're saying, okay, how are you different from the other applicants that have done the exact same thing? And there are always thousands of other applicants who have done the exact same thing. You're editor of the student paper, congratulations. There's like 24,000 high schools in the US. Almost all of them have an editor-in-chief of the school paper. Captain of the football team, great. All of these things are echoed. And so I know it's very hard when you're in high school. Like, I'm not telling you have to go out and like summit Mount Everest with no oxygen on your own to raise money for homeless orphaned puppies. But what I am saying is that we really need to create a narrative. We need to be introspective. We need to be self-aware. And this is critically important, right? Admissions officers are far less impressed with or care about what you've done. They care about why you did it, how you did it. How does this fit into a narrative? And before you come at me on social media, because a lot of you like to do that, I'm not saying you have to pick your career and lock yourself in high school. That's not the point. Yes, you can explore. Yes, you can adventure. Yes, you can try different things and see how that feels. But the reality is this: schools, universities want to see why you did that. Why did you try that out? Why did you pursue that? Why did you stop it? Why did you decide to go deeper on this one? For those of you who follow me, you understand that I always preach that less is more. We want to do fewer things and do them intentionally. If you're just racing and trying to do all these clubs, and I hear from parents all the time, my child has no time to think about strategy because they're doing this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And that sounds great. And when you go to the pickup line or the country club, or you see your friend at the grocery store and you brag about your kid, they're like, oh, that's really impressive. They're doing all those things. But the reality is that they're just doing a bunch of things not very well. Parents, you know this from your own daily grind. Like when you step back and you think about, you do an assessment of your life and you're like, you know what? I'm like running around doing all these things and I'm missing out on depth in the things that are meaningful to me, right? My family, my spouse, my partner, my children, my parents. These are things that matter, right? Your work, if that's something that's deeply meaningful to you, or your art or your music or whatever it is that fills your cup. But we get caught up in this rush every day to do all these things, right? We're running around, we're stuck in the car, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're making other people happy. And that's how I view activity racing in high school. If your child is simply just like running from activity to activity to activity, because they're like, oh, I have to fill my activity list in the Common App and build a resume, that is absolutely the wrong thing to do. I want you to give them the courage. I want you to give them the strength. This is a lot of the work we do at Admittedly. We hold the space for them to really get introspective about why they're doing things, remove the things that no longer serve them, and then figure out how, with those remaining things that are meaningful to them, how do we go deeper into that? And those could be related to your major. Those could be personal for you, right? Sometimes a student will say, well, I love this sport, but I'm not going to be recruited. Like, okay, great. You have friends there. Do you work hard there? Is it something meaningful to you? And they say, yes. Okay, great. Do that. That's fantastic. But then we have to be intentional about the way we spend the rest of our time, because obviously we're giving time to a sport, so we have less time to do these other things. So let's be focused and intentional and find a way to really, really lean into that in a way that's going to resonate when I talk about it in an essay. So when I talk about introspection, right, I really, and again, this is a lot of the work that we do here at Admittedly with students, is we ask them a lot of questions. Okay, you like that? Tell me about how much you like it, why you like it, what you've done to explore that interest. Where did that come up from? And a lot of times we'll find that interests that they thought that they had were really more just casual and passing, and something else that they really love, but they don't feel is quote unquote worthy of admissions, is something we can really lean into. And parents, again, I'm a parent. I have a high school senior, I have a high school freshman. I'm right here with you on this. A lot of times the students are just, they're hesitant, they're shy, they're embarrassed, whatever word you want to use, to talk about that with their parents. Like, hey, mom and dad, I really love biology. I want to be a zoologist, for example, right? Because they're afraid of the judgment. They're afraid of disappointment. They're afraid of a lot of different things. And so a lot of times we are able to kind of help the student find their voice on that and then communicate it to the parents in a way that the parents aren't saying, wait a minute, I'm paying all this money to have you get this degree. And we walk them through, okay, here's what we can do with this. Here's why it's meaningful. We want this level of engagement and interest because that's what drives our students. That's what drives us. And that's what helps us stand out in the application pool. When you can come and say, I have done the work, I have looked inward, this is something that is meaningful to me. This is why. This is what I've done to discover that. And then this is what I've done to develop that further and make an impact. That is what I call narrative coherence. It's the ability to spin all the things that you've done together, weave them into a cohesive story. And it doesn't have to be a perfect linear story. A lot of times, some of my most successful students tried things and didn't like them, changed direction, for example, but really were able to get something coherent together for the application and really articulate, hey, this is why I made these decisions. And they allowed the admissions officer to get inside their head and follow their path. And that is when the admissions officer connects with you. That's when that click happens. That's when they're like, oh, I see this student. I feel this student. This student needs to go to committee. Let me give you a couple examples because this is a difficult concept to kind of get our heads around. So I'm going to talk about a couple examples here. One is a student I had a few years ago, and they were deeply interested in theater and particularly costuming. They were interested in fashion, yes, but really interested in the art of costuming, creating a world and a character, and working with an actor, working with a director and saying, okay, what does this character need to communicate when they are on stage? How do we communicate who this character is, their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, not just through the words and actions, but also through what they're wearing, how they are occupying this physical space. And so this student worked a lot with local community theaters. They worked with their school theater. And as we were looking at programs, they realized that NYU's Gallatin School really allowed them to bridge the kind of business of fashion because they were smart and they were like, hey, I want to make a living doing this, but I need to understand that. The history of fashion, but then also being able to work with NYU's world-class theater program. And so by bringing all of those things together, they were really able to weave this coherent, cohesive narrative around this is what interests me. This is what I think I want to do with it. This is why this program particularly speaks to me and allows me to pull all these different elements in. And it's perfect for me. And I'm steps away from Broadway and some of the best theater in the world where I can intern and really, really roll up my sleeves and learn this day to day. Another example of narrative coherence that gets to impact was a student that I had who went to boarding school. And super bright, super hardworking, amazing student, but kind of, had some difficulty adjusting. Sophomore year was found to be in violation of the alcohol policy. And for those of you who know boarding schools, you know that the schools take that very seriously, but at the same time, they understand that these are young adults that they're dealing with. They're teenagers. They make mistakes. They sometimes, have less than great judgment. And so there is an element there of, okay, do you want to earn your way back into the community? And for this student, the answer was a resounding yes. And so they did the work, they went to therapy, they met with the teachers, they, faced their problem, they resolved their problem, and they came back and they really, really started performing at really well academically. It really gave them the self-confidence, the drive, like, hey, I belong here, I'm a member of this community, but something wasn't sitting right with them. And they said, really like, I really want to, I want to give back. I see so many other young women at this school, at our school, struggling with all of these issues: peer pressure, body image, social acceptance, all the things that go on with being a teenager. And so she took this and she formed a peer support group. And a lot of students will try and do this. She did it. She brought in all of her friends who were upperclassmen as mentors. She got teachers involved. She brought in outside speakers. She had several hundred members of this club by the time she graduated. She made a real material and lasting impact on this community. And so when we were building the narrative, and we wrestled a lot with this, the family really pushed back with me on this, but I'm like, you need to own this in your personal statement. First sentence, you need to talk about how you messed up, how you slipped and you fell, because the rest of this story is redemption. It is you not just learning from your mistake and owning it, but that you took this and you turned it into something that was positive for all the people around you. And you built it in a way that was lasting. The club is still going strong years later. I check in when I visit this school, and it was a beautiful thing. It was a meaningful thing. And so being able to be introspective and then build this coherent, cohesive narrative when it came time to do the essays and the Common App led to this student being successfully admitted to their dream school, a school that their counselor told at school said, there is absolutely no way you're getting in here. It's completely out of reach given your background. Look at these like tier 5 schools because you're out of luck. And we were able to really, really get into the why and the meaning behind what she had done and experienced and do that. So really, I want you to ask yourself, freshmen, sophomores, maybe juniors at this point, like, what am I actually doing? How am I affecting the lives of people around me? Am I just frantically scrambling and racing from thing to thing to thing? Or am I actually able to step outside of myself and say, you know what? You're really doing something interesting here. You're doing something meaningful. It can be whatever you want it to be. Right? I'm not putting boundaries on it, but I am saying is that you have to do something. You cannot simply excel academically and join a few clubs and expect to be a standout for a top school. I'm sorry. I know I give a lot of hard truths here, and I know some people don't like to hear it, but this is a reality. This is a competitive process. And what schools want, what universities want, are students who can hit the ground, look around them and say, this place is amazing. How can I make it better? And how can I share my experience with other people? I'm going to leave you with one last example. This was a student we had who came from a very socioeconomically disadvantaged background, and in fact had to leave full-time high school to get a job to earn money to literally support the family, pay the mortgage, pay the grocery bills, and they were in a distance learning school. And so a lot of people will say to me in the comments, and I can feel the comments coming at me now on social media, oh, it's easy. You just write that story and say, oh, I'm disadvantaged, and boom, you're in. Nothing could be further from the truth. And the first drafts of these essays that I got from this student were an absolute disaster. They were trying so hard to prove themselves and prove their value. And I was able to pull them back and say, listen, tell me about your day working. And they were working a very manual labor job. There's nothing glamorous in this job. It was dirty. It was hard. They started before the sun came up, usually came home after the sun went down. They would take a break in the middle of the day to go to classes online, remotely, and then back to work. And we started talking about it, and they started talking about the beauty of what they did and why they chose to work. They were working with animals, horses in particular, why they chose to work with horses, what the relationship with the horse meant to them, why they enjoyed the physical labor, what the rewards were, what they learned, the grit, the tenacity, the patience, the empathy, all of those things. And we were really able to step back and pull that into essays that really reflected the character and the beauty of this person's experience. And the result, REA admission to their dream school, full scholarship, and we're still in touch, and they are just absolutely killing it and loving the experience. So remember that you have to do something, you have to make an impact, but then being introspective about what you are doing and what you've done and having a coherent and cohesive narrative are critical. You have to be able to tell the story in an effective way. And that is something we work day in, day out with our admittedly students, and something that we're going to share with you over the course of the coming year. Remember, we have weekly free podcasts on Apple and Spotify. We have daily social media content at AdmittedlyCo. That's at AdmittedlyCo on Instagram and TikTok. And we have monthly free webinars. On our website, www.admittedly.co. We have a lot of free resources. We want you to be successful. We want to empower you. We want to help you on this journey, whether you're a member of the Admittedly family or not. We want to make sure that you are getting everything that you need to be successful. We want to give you the courage to do less, but do it intentionally and well in a way that is true to yourself. Thank you so much for following. Thank you so much for listening. We've got a lot more content coming your way. Thank you for your engagement. Please be sure to follow us, comment, and interact. I love hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Please take a moment to subscribe to the Admittedly podcast and download this episode. I welcome you to share your thoughts and questions with me. You can find us on social media at Admittedly Podcast. I look forward